you just want to chirp in and ask me any questions, be my guest. So, I've got this. Look at that. Look at that. Old spoons. Old spoons in a nice velvet case with a lovely old patina of tarnish on them. Let's have a closer look here. And then we'll have a look at what we're going to do. Let's see, I need to do that, I need to do that, I need to do that. Right. So, what we're looking at are some teaspoons and 6 teaspoons in a velvet box. Now, what's always nice is when you get something when you get a repetition of things like that, it's lovely because it creates a pattern on the page. So we're going to embrace that. We're going to end up with a really nice design. And what I want to focus on here is there's not a lot. I know I always bang on about look for the shapes and simplify everything. Hang on, there's a couple of people just coming in. But there's not so much light and shade here. It's more about reflections, because obviously these are silver spoons and they are shiny. So what we're going to try and do here is emphasize the shiny. And you emphasize the shiny by reflections, and there are highlights here. You can see where the light's hitting the silver. You've got big blown out white highlights. Now we are going to leave these white, and we're just going to blob in this lovely array of color here, which is predominantly this kind of browny ochre color, but you can see that there are sharp reflections in there as well. So this is going to be a combination of blurred reflections, blurred color, and also sharp color. I'm going to show you how to do that in a bit. And what else? Something else we're going to keep an eye on is this edge around the side here. I want to try and just keep this highlight around the edge of the spoons, because that gives them solidity, that gives them depth. And that's important. If you miss that off, you're going to end up with 6 murky looking lollipops, which we don't want. So we're going to try and achieve reflection. We're going to address the nature of the surface, which is reflective. And we're going to try and retain some of this edge to give them depth. Let me show you what I mean. Okay. Sketchbook at the ready. I'm going to start off with a pencil sketch. Hang on, let's get this sorted out. Let's see if we can make this a little more comfortable. That's there, that's there, that's there. We've got paints, we've got water, we've got a brush, and we need a pencil. Okay, off we go. So, I always try to flesh things out. I always start with a kind of rough outline. So, I'm just going to very, very lightly, I'm just going to do a boundary box. My spoons are going to fit in this boundary box, and there are 6 of them. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a kind of scaffolding onto which I'm going to do my drawing. Now, I'm not going to be able to draw 6 identical shapes. In fact, the fact that they are going to be a little bit wobbly and a little bit random and a little bit uneven is going to give them a charm. It's going to say, okay, this isn't a photograph, it's a painting. We're making a painting. We're not copying a photograph, we're making a painting. So I'm very easily and very relaxed. I'm just going to start doing these shapes, and I'm coming down here. I'm starting here, starting up here, top right corner. And I'm just in a very relaxed manner coming down there, doing a handle and doing a bowl. And yes, it's wobbly. Yes, it's a little bit, doesn't matter. I quite like that. That's all right. I'm happy with that. Let's move on to this one. And again, nice and relaxed. Let's just, I mean, I've got the shape of the bowl a little bit wrong there, but this is a kind of coming back to Sketchbook Club loosening up session. So again, it's just an outline of the spoon. Sticking to these lines that I've drawn so that I know that I'm gonna get 6 in a row. Down with the handle, round with the bowl. What could be easier? That one's gone a little bit thin and spindly, and that's got a little bit fat up there, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Down with the bowl, down with the handle. It's probably the wonkiest of the bunch so far, but I'm just enjoying getting it. I'm a little bit rusty. It's incredible just how quickly that kind of hand-eye coordination thing goes to sleep. It needs a good old shaking. So there, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spoons in a tray. Very wonky, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be, it's a painting. It's already turning into a nice pattern, and I'm going to go straight into the paint. So pencil down. So let's have a look what we've got in terms of color. We have got, we've got a lot of color going on here, but predominantly behind this tarnish, there's a kind of yellowy, browny ochre thing. This goes a bit green, it goes a bit blue, because I think what's happening is some of this shine is picking up the reflections of, well, it's basically picking up the reflections of the room that I took the photograph in. So there's all kinds of colors in here, but I think underneath it all, it's probably a reflection of the ceiling, which combined with the patina of tarnish on the spoons has given us this kind of yellowy ochre thing. So let's start that with a base coat of yellow. So let me show you what I've got. Let me show you what I'm doing. I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to make a puddle of that. Now, you know, earlier I said there are soft reflections in here, and there are also hard-edged reflections. We're going to start with the soft reflections. So soft reflections mean no hard edges, just lots of beautiful colors oozing into each other. So I've got my yellow there. What I'm also going to be looking at, I might put a bit of this red in here. So I've already spritzed this with my water. So these are all kind of moist and ready to go. So I've got a yellow. Hang on, let's get the old kitchen roll. Don't go anywhere without the kitchen roll. I'm putting a bit of that in there. That's going to look nice. Not making very strong concentrations because this is a kind of base coat. And also this, I think this is quite a predominant color. So look, I've just got 3 quick puddles of what I'm going to be using as a base coat there. So I've got a nice puddle of this yellow. So let's start. I'm starting on the right because I'm left-handed and I'm going to work across this way. If you're right-handed, maybe you want to start on the right and move that way. No laws, no rules really. So remember I was talking about the highlights. We are keeping the highlights white. This big old splash of light in this bowl here tells us that the light's coming from the right, and it also tells us that that bowl, that spoon is a dish, is a bowl that's being lit from the right. The left, the reflection of here, you know, this is in darkness, and also we've got that lovely white line down the side, which is going to give us some 3-dimensionality. So anyway, I'm waffling on. Let me get started. Here, I'm leaving this white. So I'm just going to come down there. See, I'm leaving that side white. I'm coming down here. This pencil line is the outline. So when I'm coming around the inside here, I'm going to leave a little line around that side like that. Can you see? I'll hold it up to the camera in a minute. But what I'm doing is I'm leaving a gap of dry white paper between the paint and the pencil line. And of course, I'm leaving this area white because it is a reflection. So now I've got a lovely pool of wet paint inside this spoon. I'm going to quickly rinse my brush, give it a quick dab and a dry, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to put some more colour in here. So I'm going to come in with this red. Now, I've gone a little bit heavy on the liquid here. So adding a pale washy red to this is getting a bit too dilute. But anyway, I'll press on. I just want to introduce an interest. Can you see that's already defining that edge, which is nice. So what else have we got in here? We've probably got some, this looks a little blue in here. So I've got a lovely purple there, which I'm going to use for the background, but hang on, you can't see what I'm doing. This lovely purple I'm going to use for the background, but I'm actually going to spot a bit of that in there as well. Now, you remember I was talking, we're using soft colors here. So I'm putting this is wet in wet. So this is looking rather lovely because it's doing its own thing. The paint's going in and it's just flowing around inside the water, inside the painting, inside the line. Let me try and show you what I mean. If I'll focus up, that is wet. There's red in there, there's yellow in there, and there's purple in there. But the majority of it, I'm leaving white. And I'm going to come back to that in a bit, and I'll show you why. So anyway, if you've got puddles in there, you don't really want puddles of water lying on your paper. So dry off your brush and just use the wonders of osmosis to suck up any big puddles of colour. So there you see, that's enough. That's enough of a base coat because I'm going to come back into this in a bit when this is dried, and I'm going to add some more colour. And those colours, when I add them when it's dry, it's going to be hard edged and crispy. Let's press on and let's just work on the rest of these spoons. Again, I'm doing this bowl up here, but I'm keeping this crisp white edge. I'm not painting right up to my pencil line because I want an edge on this spoon. I want to show that this spoon has a thickness. And I'm coming down the handle. This handle down here has got a little kind of spline in it. So look, that's a blob of yellow all over. Wash that off, come out. Let's go in with, I don't think I used any brown in the last spoon. So I'm going to just drop a little bit of this brown in here, just for continuity. And the more colors you put in these spoons, the more interesting they're going to be because it's reflecting the room that they're in. So I'm going in and I'm just dropping in little bits of brown here. Look, all that brown there I got going. Bit of that, bit of that, bit of that. And keeping it all nice and loose and lively. So look at, I've got yellow and I've got brown in there. Wash that brush off, drab it off. Bit of this red. Remember, we were putting pots of red in there because there's something red reflecting in there. So let's keep the color palette similar in each of these spoons. And then finally, just a hint of that purple, which is nice. Let me come down here so you can see what I'm doing again. That's better. Some of these spoons, there are parts of these spoons that get quite dark. especially around the kind of shady bit, this side, the right side of this. The left side's reflecting a window or something, but the right side is much darker. Smooth that out a bit. Okay, let's press on. I'll probably stop waffling on so much now and do the rest of these spoons a little quicker. But I am actually looking at the reference pick, and I'm looking to see where the light's hitting there. So and again, just leaving that white edge. Base coat of yellow, bit of this red in there just to cheer it up a bit. That's red's getting a bit washy and a bit too dilute. So let's give it a bit more clout, especially up at the top there. And then here, oops, covered that yellow. Cover my little line up there, my little highlight line, which was a bit naughty. But let's soldier on. Some of the brown. Down there. And what I'm doing here and there, I'm going back to these other two, and if it looks a little bit mean or it looks a little bit washed out, just drop a little bit more colour in there. Now these are looking a little hot and gingery, but don't worry, we're going to come in with some blue in a bit and cool it all down. Because watercolour is a translucent additive material, when you put something on top of something that's already there, you can see through it. I've gone in with this purple here, and look, I'm starting to darken pieces of these down a little bit, which is nice. It's enjoying that, just tying it all together. So when you get to this stage, you're thinking, okay, I've got the hang of this now. Let's really tosh these out. Bit of a base coat of yellow, always leaving the highlights white, not putting any paint in the highlights at all. Get that base coat of yellow down, and then just fill that yellow with other colours to make it decorative. I suppose that's the word we're looking for. We want these to be decorative. We're doing a painting, you know. It's got to look nice. Get some of that brown going. And then a little bit of purple. These hopefully now are slowly drying, because we're going to come back to these and we're going to paint over the dry surface. So I'm just going in and picking out all these puddles. I don't want puddles because they take forever to dry. But hopefully by the time we finish this row of spoons, we can come back to the first one and we can put in some of those dark edged shadows. So again, just starting off with this yellow base, painting in the shady side of the bowl, leaving the edge of the spoon white because that's a specular highlight. We want that to ping. We're going to put a background in this in a minute, and it's really going to bring everything forward. It's really going to make these spoons jump out. But at the moment, we're just filling in. We're painting the silver. We're painting the silver with the reflections of the room that the spoons are sitting in. With that lovely brown. See, this looks nice already. This is already creating a three-dimensional effect, isn't it? Because you've got deep, dark colour in there. Nice. Bit of the old purple in there. Let's put some purple tips in there. And also, I think the darkest part of these spoons is just where the handle meets the bowl. See, just there and there and there. And also just there and there. It's almost like where the light's not quite getting there. So that's a dark bit. So we're going to remember that. We're going to work on that later. Meanwhile, we'll just finish off with the last spoon. That's going to be my background. That's going to really throw these spoons forward with this really nice punchy purple. And the last one. Still, even right over here, they've still got this little crisp white line around the edge, which is going to make it look real, which is a bonus. That comes down there. I'm trying to keep, you see he's got this little spine on the handle. I'm trying to keep a hang on that, trying to keep that apparent. So that yellow goes in, and then we just chonk in with a little bit of red. Like I say, this is just the reflection of the room. A bit of brown maybe. Just to make it pretty. And then just a hint of that purple. Just a bit in there. And of course, this is interesting. Can you see how it dries lighter? This is drying much lighter than this that I've just painted. This will dry to this paleness here in a minute. So what have we got? Let me lift this up and show you what I've got here, what I think looks nice. So, look at it, when I was talking about soft edges, this is what I mean. All this stuff here that is the beauty of watercolor, when it mingles and it creates these little blooms and transitions of color. Absolutely lovely. You can't get that in any other medium, really. Anyway, so now these are dry. I'm dry over here. I'm wet over here. I'm still dry. I've dried off here. And I'm going to put some of these sharp-edged shadows. I was talking about, look, can you see down there? Those have got hard edges. There are soft edges where the colors shift and mingle like we've achieved here. There's also some hard edges in there. And that's kind of bluey. There's a blue thing going on in here. So let's try and bring a bit of that in. I'm going to dab into this ultramarine here. Just going to do a wash of it. And because this is dry, when I paint in here now, these edges are going to be sharp. So I can do some interesting brush strokes like this. And I can put some shapes in here. And I can start to create the illusion of reflection even more. If I don't want a hard edge, or if I think that those edges are a bit too hard, I can still soften them off. And what I do is I just wet my brush and just touch that edge like that, and that'll soften that hard edge away and turn it soft. You see here, that's looking a bit empty down there. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to go back Put a bit of that. So now I'm just going to go around here and I'm going to start to just add in some of these hard edges. I'm going to accentuate the shady bit, the darker bits. I'm only working in the darker bits. I'm not going to go into the lighter bits. I'm just building up the shadow. See, look, come down there. That's going to work really well. Let's have a look here. You know, I was saying these little bits just at the end of between the handle and the bowl, they're dark. So I'm really going to chunk some tone into there and make that much darker, and here too. I'm going to make that look dark. I'm going to bring that round out. I'm going to... that edge might be a bit hard there, so let's just soften him off a bit like that. Get blue going. I'm more interested in the value than I am in the color. And when I mean, what I mean by value is the lightness and the darkness of it. I think it's more important. The colors are quite random and arbitrary. You know, they don't have to be realistic. What does have to be realistic is the lightness and the darkness, because that's what describes the form. Let's get a bit more of that in. I'm never mixing my colors in here. I'm only allowing the colors to mix on the page, because I think if you mix it in the palette, that's when they tend to go muddy. Whereas if you just allow them to mix on the page, on your painting, they stay quite vibrant. Just accentuating that little spine down there. Softening that edge a bit. So these are starting to look quite nicely tarnished, aren't they? They're looking rather old and neglected. I'm sure we've all got a set of wedding presents. This is the kind of wedding present that you never use, isn't it? We've all got them. Somebody thought, oh, yeah, a set of spoons, that's a nice wedding present. Absolutely useless. Right, that's not, I'm kind of there with it. You know what? We're making these, I was going to suggest putting a bit of green in, but I don't think it needs it, because the blues that I'll be putting on top of the yellows has already started to turn these a little bit green. So you know what? I'm going to leave that. I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to leave that as it is. And I'm going to put in a solid background to make these really jump off the page. So what I'm going to do, I've got that old purple. If you haven't got a purple, mix up a nice rich wash of ultramarine and alizarin crimson, or blue and red. You know, like I say, the colour's not that critical. But what I want you to do is make it strong, because a lot of time, and a pitfall that beginners fall into is painting with coloured water, and things just look too wishy-washy. Things don't have any punch. So make a really nice, strong wash. You can start to put down a wash that might not be quite as strong as you like, but you can add to it later on. Let me show you what I mean. So I've got this lovely purple. I've gone and made a really nice, strong purple. And I'm going to really splash in the background here. Now, when you're young and fearless, and you know, 7 years old, this is not a problem. But when you get a little bit older and you become a bit more nervous about your artwork, it's harder to be bold, but be bold, you know, find your inner child and put on lots of color. Now look there, I'm going around my little white line there. I'm making sure that my little white line is remaining, you know, and I'm mixing colors here. I've gone in with a bit of blue. This is predominantly purple, but every now and then I go into my blue because I don't really want a big, solid, single color. It's much nicer if there's a bit of variety in your solid blocks of color. So I don't know if you can see this on this camera, but this is shifting between purple and blue. I might even put a bit of red in there in a minute. So look, I've got in there and I'm carefully painting around. This is the negative space around these spoons. And I'm making sure that I leave that little white highlight edge that we were talking about earlier. I'm keeping it moving all the time so it's not drying off. Now, you know, I was saying about keeping your backgrounds lively. This purple's made up of red and blue, obviously, so I'm actually coming in with a bit of red now, and I'm mixing some red into the purple just to make it look interesting. Because, you know, they always used to put these spoons into a lovely, rich, regal velvet case, didn't they, to make them look expensive. So now I'm just painting around all these spoons. Keeping the white highlights, if I can. Whizzing around here now. Now, I've gone back to my purple. Might put some more of this red in. And you'll see when this dries, it's looking a little bit crazy underneath the camera here. I think a little bit overexposed, but when this dries off, it's going to look interesting. Lots of lovely, lovely, strong colour. You know, be fearless. Embrace colour. It makes the world a prettier place. So I'm whizzing along here now. Let's get some blue in. I've gone along, I've done some, I've dipped into my red, so I'm going to balance that out by putting in a bit of blue. If we're going back to my purple, and again, like I say, I'm allowing these colours to mix on the page. And I'm smoothing out any areas that look a bit blotchy. Although I quite like, in fact, what I always like to do is when this reaches this stage where it's soaked into the paper but it's not quite dry, just like to spot in some little blobs of clean water, and they'll do interesting things with the watercolour. You'll see what I mean. It usually takes a couple of minutes to happen, but they'll create blooms, which is where the water pushes the paint aside. And No, there are no blooms on the velvet in there, but I just like to do it just to watch what happens because it's so visually interesting. I mean, if you don't want any, we could do a perfectly flat background here. There's a time and a place for a perfectly flat background, but in a sketchbook, it's a nice place to experiment. Okay, right now, let me put this up because I don't think we're getting a true representation of what's going on here. There, look, now that's more like it. What we've got, that background is very random. I could smooth that out with my brush if I wanted to, but I quite like it like that. And another reason I'm going to leave it is because I'm going to try to put in a little bit of a shadow behind each one of these spoons. Now, because this is all still wet, what I'm going to do, I'm going to dry off that brush. I'm going to hoover up some of this liquid because I don't really want puddles in here. And I'm going to just do a little shadow on the right-hand side of each one of these spoons. And for that, I'm not going to make a wash. I'm not going to make a puddle. I'm going to go straight into this pan of purple here. And this is almost like a paste. This is as thick as this is going to get. So that, on my brush there, I've just got neat watercolor paint. And I'm just going to go down this edge like this. And that, can you see it? It suddenly makes that spoon, it's hard to see because everything's a bit shiny. It just makes that spoon jump off the page. I want to soften the outside. Yeah.
What colour are you using for the shadow? Sorry.
I've just got, I've used a purple for the background, Gwen.
Yeah.
I've just gone straight into my purple here, but I'm not making a puddle of purple. I'm just using solid purple.
Thank you.
And here, just going in with that really strong paint. It's almost like gouache. It's almost like poster paint. It's so thick. But as you can see, it just makes the spoon pop off the page. I can soften the edge a little bit if I want, just by smoothing over a little bit of clean water. So yeah, moist brush into the pan itself for very, very concentrated mix of paint. And then just a little line of shadow with the lights. Not there. And you know what? It's a wobbly shadow, but that's quite nice because it kind of makes the picture look alive when you put, the flaws of the human hand are what makes it real. Oh, hang on, somebody at my door. I'll be right back. Sorry, everybody, I wasn't professional, was I? Right, last one. That lovely gloopy purple again, just down this edge. Now, because I'm doing it here where the paint's still wet, that is kind of going to blend into the background, which is rather lovely. Right, and you know what? I think that's it. Let me show you what we've got, because it's a little clearer if I hold it up. there you start to see the true colours that we've achieved. This looks a little bit yellow on screen, but that's not a million miles away from our subject. Look how those shadows have really made those spoons pop out. Isn't that lovely? And look how we've achieved a nice bowl in these spoons by putting dark down there and leaving those highlights light. And look how we've left that crisp white edge to give the silver some dimension. And look how the background moves between blue and red and purple, and it just makes it a bit more interesting. And that is your sketch. That's a nice little half-hour study. All right, everybody, that wasn't too bad for the first time back, was it?
The shadow really makes them pop out, doesn't
it just, eh? Makes all the difference.
The mind suddenly became 3D.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for being. It's so nice to see you all again. And I'll see you all next week, eh?
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Martin.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.